Hello and welcome to Sports Fan Entertainment as the general manager search for the Tennessee Titans comes to an abrupt end. We were expecting to have a second round of interviews, but they just said, F it, we have our guy, Ran Carthon, the now former director of player personnel for the San Francisco 49ers, will be joining the Tennessee Titans as their new general manager in 2023. How very interesting indeed. Now, we're not going to go too much in depth here. We're going to discuss pretty much as we should appropriately, because ultimately, you never really know how much responsibility some of these directors actually have. And this is important. And I mentioned this when we fired John Robinson. One of the reasons why, look, and we're over it, we don't need to discuss it in detail. But one of the reasons why I wouldn't have done it is instead of firing him, I would have fired some of these directors. I mean, we just had our director of player personnel, Monty Austinford. He just got hired by the Cardinals. I think we needed better directors, better scouts. But sometimes it's just on the GM. The GM bears the responsibility, and then now you just go get another GM. But these directors, they play an important role. And then specifically, Ran Carthon, I'm gonna mess up that name, Ran Carthon. It's gonna take some getting used to, but I'll get used to it. Sorry if I butchered it a little bit. But if you look at Ran Carthon's resume, okay, so for the last last year and a half, he has been the director of player personnel. Okay, so this includes both professional and college scouting. Okay, this does include both. And then before that, for the I guess like the previous 4 years, he was the director of pro personnel for the 49ers. So he got promoted from doing only professional players to doing all players. Now, even the directors of pro personnel, they'll do some college scouting, but player personnel, they do definitely a lot more, and it's definitely a balance between both. So he is responsible for writing reports, and I'm just reporting to the general manager in general, and also to the other coaches, team, etc., in terms of weekly scouting reports of teams, of upcoming opponents, getting them prepared, giving them advanced analytics, etc., whatever he's seeing tape-wise that could help them win the game. In terms of watching the waiver wire, what players have been cut, who can we pick up, who was a good fit for us, what's going on in terms of the rumor mill, all of that, free agency, trades. But again, it's always on the GM who has to pull the trigger. So you never really know what he's bringing to the GM, what was accepted, what wasn't, what was important, what wasn't. You never really know unless you're inside that room. So we don't know. But what you like is that he's coming from the 49ers. He's been with the 49ers since 2017, and that's when John Lynch also joined there as well. And the 49ers have been pretty damn good since 2017. And they've made some very good pro decisions, some pro personnel decisions. The trade for Christian McCaffrey, it was a little much in terms of the amount of picks, but it might win them a Super Bowl this year, so you have to like that. They stole Trent Williams from the Washington Redskins at the time, now football team, or maybe they were the Washington football team at the time, actually. They stole Trent Williams from the Washington football team for a third and a fifth. That was an absolute steal, and he's been an amazing left tackle. He's going to end up being a Hall of Famer. We already pretty much knew that, but he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer, and a lot of it's going to be with the 49ers because he's only 34. He still has some years left in. So he got Trent Williams. He's gotten some other players as well. I want to know how much he had to do with the Jimmy Garoppolo trade, which I think you can say, well, he only started 5 years. Jimmy Garoppolo was 2017, 18, well, half of 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. For a second round pick, I mean, it wasn't bad. You never can say it was bad. Was it worth it? I don't know if it was worth it, but I guess it was worth it for them because ultimately, look, he got them to a Super Bowl. He didn't get it done, but he got them to a Super Bowl. So I think the Garoppolo trade was good for a second round pick to get Garoppolo in it, for him to start 5 seasons, 4.5. I think it gets you to a Super Bowl and back up, when you needed him to. I think that was overall a good deal. The McCaffrey one again is a little expensive, but if they win a Super Bowl, it's worth it. And I mean, he's doing great right now. So you like some of the pro personnel decisions that the 49ers have been making over the last 5 seasons, and he's had a part in that. He's been the director of pro personnel. He's been the director of player personnel. So I think you have to like that side of things. Now, the concern is that, okay, he's only done about a year and a half now of doing anything related to the draft, or at least heavy related to the draft, right? Being the director of player personnel, having to deal more with the draft. And by the way, this does not include the 2021 draft, which is good because I don't like the 49ers 2021 draft right now, except for pretty much Talanoa Hufanga, who's an absolute beast. Elijah Mitchell also, he was in that draft class. He was a 6th-round pick. That was a great pick in the 6th round, but Trey Lance may end up being an absolute bust. He hasn't played. Aaron Banks, their 2nd-round pick, hasn't been very good. He's a starter, but he's been mediocre at guard. Trey Sermon was an absolute bust. Absolute bust. Ambry Thomas, they're another 3rd-round pick that they had, has played a little bit here and there, but hasn't been that impressive this year. Has been injured as well. Dearmodor Lenore actually plays a decent amount for the 49ers, but he's one of their struggling cornerbacks. I mean, he actually plays, you can say he's like their number 3 corner, I guess, like whenever everyone's healthy. So I guess you can give him that, but I'm not a big Dearmodor Lenore fan. So the 2021 draft, I didn't like, but he wasn't in charge of the draft. He wasn't director of player personnel yet. So you can excuse the 2021 draft. When you look at the 2022 draft, and let me see if I can pull this up right now, actually. That way I can have these names listed. That way we can go through and you guys can actually see. Let's do that. And yeah. So let's look at the 2022 draft. This is a draft class that we can glean something off of. But the problem with this draft is the 49ers right now are a stacked team. So a lot of these players, they're not playing just because the starters at their positions are so good. So Drake Jackson at outside linebacker, he's playing like edge 4-3 end for them pretty much. He also plays a little bit standing up as well. Now, he has 3 sacks this season. He's come in and done some things, but he was also a healthy scratch last week in the playoff game because they just have so many good players, so many good pass rushers. It's hard for him to get on the field. Ty Davis-Price, they traded for Christian McCaffrey. There's no reason to play Ty Davis-Price. He was also a healthy scratch this week against the Seattle Seahawks. Danny Gray is barely played. He has 1 catch for 10 yards. Spencer Burford. Now, he has been a starting guard for them this year. He's also been a bit mediocre. But overall, I mean, with considering the fact that the team is having success and he's been a starter, I think you're like having a 4th-round guard that comes in, starts, and you are able to run the football and pass the football as effectively as they've been. Spencer Womack played a little bit. And you look at the big name at the bottom, Brock Purdy, okay, who is lighting the league on fire currently. Brock Purdy is definitely the number 1 guy from this draft class, the highlight of this draft class. We don't know how this draft class is going to turn out. And this is the only draft class we can attribute to Ran Carthon. Ran Carthon. I keep wanting to say Carthon. Carthon. So for right now, I love the fact that he got Brock Purdy. Now, was it him? Was it Lynch? Who was it that saw the potential in Brock Purdy? Who was it? Who was it that really saw? We'll never know. I mean, unless they want to admit it to us, we don't know. So with the one draft that we have and the history of the pro personnel decisions, I'm encouraged. Now, it's not the best resume I've ever seen. I think now, of the finalists, who else did we interview? We interviewed, the other finalist was Ian Cunningham of the Bears, which I don't know why you'd want to get anyone from the Bears to your organization, to be quite honest with you, because they don't know what they're doing. I mean, they've completely torn the entire team apart. It's been ridiculous. So I was not on board with Ian Cunningham just for that reason. Now, his previous positions, like he was director of player personnel for the Eagles, and also like assistant director for the Eagles during some of their good years. I saw that and I was kind of encouraged by that, but it wasn't enough for me. I just did not want to bring, especially after this season that they had, bringing someone from the Bears just did not sound like a good idea for me. Maybe he's going to improve in the future, but did not sound like a good idea to me. And then promoting Ryan Cowden from in-house, because again, I mean, look, you can blame John Robinson all you want. There were other directors and other people in the front office that had their their words in John Robinson's ear. And if you're telling me that you don't like what he did, then I don't want to promote from inside. Get someone else. And that's what we've done here. So we're going to see. But what I like is, again, there's been some shift. I mean, the 49ers have been one of the more aggressive front offices, especially in the last 5 seasons, and he's been a part of that. So I think he's going to bring some of that aggression here. I think you might see some more trades from us. And, speaking of, look, they moved from, what was it, the 12th pick to the 3rd pick to take Trey Lance. And y'all know that I'm still looking out for the potential of trading up for Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. I'm still down. I know not everyone's down. I know people want to rebuild the roster. I know. But this guy has experience being a part of a front office that traded up. Also, we should also discuss, though, his tenure with the Rams. I forgot about that. That's actually pretty important. So he was also director of pro personnel for the Rams from 2012 to 2016. Now, this is not great because the Rams during that period were like 7-9, 7-9, 7-9, and then 4-12. I'm pretty sure those were the records. That was like Jeff Fisher era. It was ridiculous. Now, a lot of that was on Jeff Fisher because Jeff Fisher stunk. Especially at that point. At that point, he was done. He had already phased himself out as an NFL coach. He had already lost the touch of being innovative or anything close to it. So I want to blame a lot of that on Jeff Fisher, but I can't sit here and say, well, the Rams roster during those years were so talented. I can't say that. And it's also not a good look so when he got fired, and they brought in McVay. So they brought in McVay, and then they kept their general manager, Les Snead. And then since then, they've been a playoff team basically every year except for this year, where they just stunk. And it was just a disaster. So that's interesting. I have to go back and really, and I don't want to do it right now. I'll definitely want to do this like after the video. Again, this news just dropped like an hour ago. I really want to go back and look at some of those personnel decisions. I mean, if I remember correct, that's why they were trying to start Bradford. They were still trying to start Sam Bradford, which was really stupid. Even then, they took Sam Bradford with a high pick in 2010. Or maybe it was 2000. Was it 2010? Yeah, it should have been 2010. So they had to commit to him. And I understood that, but man, I knew by 2012, 2013 that Sam Bradford wasn't any good. It wasn't going to get any better. I knew that for a fact. So I don't know why they didn't know that. But yeah, so let me look at their records again. I know it was like 7-9, 7-9, 7-9, 7-9. So 2012 through 2016, so they were 7-8-1, 7-9, 6-10, 7-9, 4-12. Okay, yikes. And but there was some. This is when they had just drafted Todd Gurley in like 2015. 2016, yeah, they struggled with Goff there. Remember, they were the team that we traded with. Remember, we had the number 1 pick in the 2016 NFL draft. We traded down. They traded up to number 1. Ultimately, they took Goff. Now, they ended up trading Goff to get Stafford. That got them the Super Bowl, so I guess that was worth it. But was Goff worth the number 1 pick? That one is still like, it depends how critical you want to be. I'm not going to be that critical because he is still a starting quarterback today, and he had a pretty damn good season. So Goff is still actually a good pick, in my opinion. Maybe wasn't great, but he's better than Carson Wentz. And there were some other great players in that draft, like Jalen Ramsey, and later on, who else would have maybe gone like first overall? Like Amari Cooper. So, I think Jared Goff was still actually probably a good number 1 pick. Even if you look in hindsight, unless if you just want to be really critical. I don't like to be hypocritical. If you were not thinking at the time, well, no, this team should, I could sit here and say, oh, well, they should have took, Michael Thomas. Okay, well, Michael Thomas went in the 2nd round. That's a dumb thing to say. Joey Bosa, okay, maybe they could have took Joey Bosa instead of Jared Goff, and that would have been a better pick. But Goff ended up being traded for the guy that won them the Super Bowl, so I don't know. I think they like their fate and what happened there. So that's a decent mark for them. And I don't think they gave up too much when they traded up with us to take Jared Goff, because I remember correctly, it was like only one extra first round pick. It was like a first and a second, and then maybe a fourth. I think that was it. I think it was a first, a second, and a fourth. And that was it. So that was actually a decent trade for them. So that's something that you could say was a decent mark on his record. But the rest of the time with the Rams, it wasn't it. So I definitely want to go back and just look at some of the personnel decisions they were making at the time. I remember like a decent amount of them, but not like specifics. I just remember them being idiots trying to like play Tavon Austin, and he was never going to be a complete wide receiver. They did take Aaron Donald, and he was a beast early, but they were trying to run the football. They were trying to play Fisher ball with Sam Bradford. That Rams era was bad. It was a bad era, mediocre at best. So that's not a good mark on him. But since then, he's been with the 49ers. He's been doing great things, apparently, from what I'm seeing, with the 49ers. So I like that. So there are things that you can definitely be encouraged about. Also, I'm not going to lie. I like the fact, and it doesn't matter, like ultimately what he does as a GM is the most important thing. Okay, let's be clear. But do I hate having a brother as our general manager? I don't hate it. I don't hate it. So, you know, he seems cool to me. So I like his personality already. But he needs to, you know, draft well. He needs to be on this team, or I'm gonna criticize him just like I would anyone else. And y'all know that to be the case. So, with that said, the Tennessee Titans again hire Ran Carthon. I have to keep saying that. I keep wanting to say Carthon. I don't know why. I keep wanting to add that second R, but I'm going to stop myself from doing that. Ran Carthon from the 49ers as their new general manager. What are your thoughts on this hire? Comment down below. I want to know. And until next time, this has been MJ of Sports Fan Entertainment, and I'm out. See you all later.